Talk louder? Wow. Is that better? There you go. Wow, it looks different from this direction. Yeah. Welcome to worship in the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is Tom Byrom. I have the pleasure of leading the service today as a relatively new member of this congregation. I am more than ably assisted by Nancy Taylor, who will make sure I stay on track. Because I am new here, this welcome time has a special significance for me. My wife, Rebecca, and I moved to Peoria area a little over a year ago. After unpacking our 300-plus boxes, we started our search for a church community. The first two churches we tried treated us with indifference, which was surprising and discouraging. But although I never attended a Unitarian Universalist church, I had heard good things about it. So I suggested that we try the one here in Peoria, and this church welcomed us and made us feel that we were very welcome, very much wanted. So if you are visiting with us today, we hope you will find the same warm welcome. These are good, caring people here. For the members, friends, children, youth, strive to live our mission of embracing freedom, loving inclusively, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and adding to the health and wholeness of the world. In living our mission, we are mindful of those who came before us. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They aided the European settlers who came down the Illinois River. We offer our respect to the Peoria people for who they were in the past and who they are today. For those of you who are new to the congregation, thank you for joining us today. Visiting a religious community, whether in person or online, is a leap of hope in the search for meaning and connection. If you are online, please send a note through the church website. If you are in person, please stay for coffee hour outside after the service. Now, there are a few notes that we have to share with you as we gather in person. Please turn your phones to silent or vibrate. Also, as part of our COVID precautions, everyone age 2 and up is masking indoors. If you need a mask, you are welcome to have one from our supplies. Food and drink are consumed outside. We ask that folks socially distance from one another. It seems like you folks are all obeying on that one, as far as I can tell. And we want to do our best for our individual and collective health. COVID numbers remain high in the area. We want to do our best for individual and collective health. Please let the office know if you test positive after a church event. Our minister, Reverend Jennifer Ennis, is away from church events and vacation. That's why you're stuck with me today. For June and July, we have members and guests leading our services. Children and youth are welcome to remain in the service. We have childcare every Sunday. You're welcome to leave the service for childcare at any time. Several Sundays we'll have classes and events for children and youth. See the insert in the order of service for our schedule of summer activities. I'm having a heck of a time turning the pages. Turned too far. I'm supposed to introduce the hymn here, but I can't get to the... there we go. Well, maybe. Didn't anticipate having this kind of trouble. There you go, that old finger. Okay. So please rise in body or spirit and join us in our opening hymn, number 131 from the gray hymnal, Love Will Guide Us. Today is June 19th. It's special for, well, many reasons, I'm sure, to all of you, but a couple of notable reasons to this congregation, this church. First, today is Father's Day, the third Sunday in June. Ryan Urey of the Unitarian Church writes as follows: Father's Day is an important time to check in with the complex feelings this day may evoke. The ideal of the wise, patient, loving, all-knowing provider was never more than a useful television caricature. At its best, this ideal gives people a positive role in child-rearing to aspire to, but at its worst, it casts patriarchy in a benevolent light as the natural order of things. And it also creates an impossible standard for new fathers to live up to that denies the messy, frustrating realities and constant failings that are part and parcel of parenthood. Sometimes it feels like Father's Day is more about enshrining a myth than it is about facing the realities of fatherhood, and that often falls so far short. For some of us, like me, I'm happy to say, the story of fatherhood is about love, acceptance, and guidance. But for others, it is a story of rejection, abuse, shame, or abandonment. For some, it is a story of nurturance, but for others, it is marked by frustration and resentment, a story of burdens and unrealized dreams. For some, fatherhood is the longing for children unborn or lost to death or estrangement. Many of us have no father story at all. Whatever your story and your feelings about having or not having, being or not being a father, we honor your unique experience this day. And I invite you to let your experience be what it is without measuring it against false ideals. So blessed be to fathers. June 19th also just happens to be Juneteenth. And I confess that prior to a couple of years ago, I was not familiar with Juneteenth. Although last year President Biden signed it into law as our latest national holiday, you are going to find some places closed tomorrow that have not been closed in the past. Juneteenth commemorates the events of June 19th, 1865, when Union General Gordon Granger sailed into Galveston Harbor in Texas and informed the enslaved African Americans in that state that the Civil War had ended and that they were free. Juneteenth is therefore traditionally associated with the end of slavery in the United States. Now, slavery did not legally end in the U.S. until ratification of the 13th Amendment in December of 1865. But Juneteenth has nevertheless come to be considered the symbolic event which ended slavery in the U.S. While slavery might have ended, we all know that the sufferings of African Americans certainly did not. Soon after, the Jim Crow era began, and African Americans suffered blatant legalized discrimination for almost another 100 years. I grew up in a segregated community and witnessed open, rampant racism firsthand, and it was ugly. And even though the 1960s brought legislative equality for African Americans, we know that real equality remains elusive and is a work in progress in this country. So as we contemplate Juneteenth and its meaning, let us recommit to the spirit of what this day means, equality for all, which happens to be a core principle of this church. Thank you.
We light our chalice for fathers and for fatherhood by Peter Fredericks. For sleepless nights awaiting the curfew breakers, for anxious hours as a driving instructor, for hours spent on sidelines cheering and watching school plays, sometimes resting our eyes, for the pressure of breadwinning and wait till your father gets home, for teaching moments and mentoring moments, for making up answers when you just don't know, but are expected to because you know everything. For scrapes and boo-boo kisses and Band-Aids. For hugs and kisses and silliness and play. For bedtime stories and early morning ice time. For all the aftershave and ties received as gifts. For handing over car keys and waves goodbye. For father-daughter wedding dances and cradling grandchildren for the first time. For all the moments and all the meaning in a roll of a lifetime, we light our chalice for fathers and for fatherhood. You Are a Generous People by Michael Hall. As we approach the time for our offering, give what you will for the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that has meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. After the ushers pass the plates, while Ivy offers the music for meditation, we will have a time for us to light candles. This is the time to let what is in your mind and heart be visible and known with the tangible act of lighting a candle in the sanctuary. If you're joining us online, these candles are on your behalf. If you wish, you're also welcome to light your own candle wherever you are. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Let the plates come forward. This reading is from George Odell. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted, when we are in trouble and afraid, when we despair in temptation and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. In the hour of our successes, when we look for someone to share our triumphs, and in the hour of our defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and rise again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives are in need, and others are in need of us. This is the time for the sharing of our joys and sorrows. Bernie Humphrey is sad that not many people have signed up for coffee hour. If you would please help in the kitchen, it would be much appreciated. And sign up for future coffee hours. Other than that, we have no joys or sorrows today. I would like to say that Carol Manny tested positive for COVID. That's why I'm taking her place this morning. But she seems to be fine now. She said she tested negative. So she will be back to work, hopefully Monday, if she tested negative again. Let us hold one more moment together for all of the joys and sorrows, names and milestones that are among us and remain unspoken. In this shared quiet, we are held in the circle of care offered to all by this beloved congregation. Let us hold one more moment in quiet as we breathe together. Amen.
Today's reading is adapted from a book written by Lauren Isley, who was an anthropologist and a very prolific writer in the 50s and 60s. It's titled The Star Thrower, and I call it the Starfish Story. This reading has this story, the idea behind this story has sustained me through much, and I frequently refer to it and think about it. It goes as follows. Once upon a time, there was a wise man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach before he began his work. One day, as he was walking along the shore, he looked down the beach and saw a human figure moving like a dancer. He smiled to himself at the thought of someone who would dance to the day, and so he walked faster to catch up. As he got closer, he noticed that the figure was that of a young man, and that what he was doing was not dancing at all. The young man was reaching down to the shore, picking up small objects and throwing them into the ocean. The wise man came closer still and called out, "Good morning. May I ask what you are doing?" The young man paused, looked up, and replied, "I'm throwing starfish into the ocean." "Then I must ask," and the man said, "why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?" To this, the young man replied, "The sun is up, the tide is going out, and if I don't throw them in now, they'll die." Upon hearing this, the wise man commented, "But, young man, do you not realize that there are miles upon miles of beach, and there are starfish all along every mile? You cannot possibly make a difference to these starfish." At this, the young man bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the ocean. As it met the water, he said to the wise man, "I made a difference to that one." So let us now turn to our hymnal. If I can find it. Next hymn is I know this rose will open, so let us stand in body and our spirit. Hymn number 396 in the gray hymnal. Please. When the church was looking for volunteers to lead the Sunday services this summer, I tossed my hat in the ring. I have done something like this before, so it seemed like the right thing to do. However, I come before you today with more than the usual nervousness. You see, as I advance in age, I find I need more reminders of what I've committed myself to. So as soon as I volunteered for this task, I typed in an entry into my phone's calendar for today that said, Tom runs the UU church service. Except that I did not type those exact words. I typed something slightly different, but with a whole different meaning. What I typed actually was Tom ruins the UU church service. Let's hope these words are not prophetic. So onward from that. As he once reflected on his life's journey, Mark Twain wrote, "The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why." I know the first. I'm still looking for the second. It is often said that life is a series of decisions, the result of choices made. And no doubt our conscious choices do make a huge difference. However, when I reflect upon my life, I am struck by the impact of those events that I did not choose to happen, some of which were very good, some were even great, especially meeting my lovely wife, Rebecca, for example. Unfortunately, some of these events were unwelcome and even awful. My journey began when I was a child growing up in Memphis, Tennessee. You probably figured out I'm not from around here. I attended a Southern Baptist church, as did everyone I knew practically. I attended regularly and I was indoctrinated into that version of faith. However, fundamentalist Christianity had no staying power beyond my youth, and I paid no attention to spiritual matters until I was in my 40s. I met somebody outside today that said he'd been in a secular mode the last 10 years. I thought that was a good way to put it. I was in a secular mode virtually my entire adult life until my early 40s. But Rebecca missed having a church family, and she also felt our son Matt needed some religious exposure. So we became active in a United Methodist church close to where we lived in Northern California. Just Churchtown turned out to be a very progressive and open congregation, which welcomed all people regardless of their beliefs or lack thereof. Joining this Methodist church turned out to be a blessing because 9 months later, my 29-year-old stepdaughter, Cindy, died in an auto accident. This was a shattering, heart-rending loss to our family, especially Rebecca, her mother. During such an awful time, having a church community was a great comfort. My stepdaughter's death was a watershed event for my faith. In the years after Cindy's death, I read many, many books on faith and spirituality. I explored many sources: Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Native American, secular humanist, and if there are any others, I've just forgotten them. In the process, I typed out 50 pages of disorganized notes, which produced a lot of bulk but very little enlightenment. Lo and behold, fate delivered the opportunity I needed to sift through these riches and notes and extract what was meaningful. It was not a welcome event, but opportunities to grow in spirit are often not welcome events. They come along at inconvenient times and in threatening ways. Such was certainly the case with me in this next great leap in my spiritual journey. When I was 56 years old, a doctor said the following words to me: "You have a tumor and it is malignant." Now, I'm pretty sure many of you have heard these or similar words. If so, I suspect you will agree with me that when you hear them, the baggage of your life just fades away, and as you contemplate your mortality firsthand. Author Robert Fulghum states it very well with these words. He says, "As a minister, I am familiar with the occasions when the recognition of your mortality suddenly brings you to some high place where your life is spread out before you. The ordinary flow of life stops, and you see your existence as a whole. You make some decisions about what gives it meaning and what takes away from a meaningful existence." I found myself in this high place that Fulghum refers to. The ordinary flow of life stopped. The really extraordinary began to happen. Within a few hours of hearing about the cancer, I was enveloped in a massive cocoon of positive thoughts, prayers, good wishes. This abundance of loving support was beyond anything I could have imagined, and it produced in me a profound sense of gratitude. This feeling of gratitude was so strong I could almost reach out and touch it. Gratitude overwhelmed all other emotions, including the anxiety and fear that are a natural part of the cancer experience. Well, as you can see, I did not die from the cancer. However, the tumor did cause a nerve injury in my lower spine, and I was immobilized for several weeks. This immobility turned out to be a great blessing as I had time to ponder the experience with cancer, review the 50 pages of typewritten notes I referred to earlier, and draw some lessons from it. And I will share those lessons with you. First lesson number one, most important of all: love is the most important thing in the world. To love and to be loved is the essence of a fulfilled life. You cannot give or receive too much love, and I have been much blessed in that regard. Second, kindness is how we should act toward others and ourselves, and we should try to make this a full-time occupation. Third, we all have souls, and there is a divine spirit, a source of love that somehow connects all of our souls to each other. I have no idea how this works, but I do believe in souls that live on after we die. Fourth, that fountain of divine spirit is accessible to us, and we can use it to make the world a better place. Finally, we can make the world a more loving place by sharing our spiritual gifts, our blessings, and our deepest selves. Now, for 20 years, these principles served me well, and armed with them, I resolved to live a more meaningful life. And the path forward for me to do so fell almost effortlessly into place. I volunteered for a counseling program at my church where I received 50 hours of training in listening skills, which, as my wife will certainly agree, I really needed. I sat with many men who were going through a crisis, listening to them share their feelings, encouraging and supporting them. Those of you with a Christian background might recognize this program. It's called Stephen Ministry. I also volunteered at an agency that helped the homeless in our community. I put my listening skills to good use and I heard many disturbing life stories. Working with the homeless was an eye-opening experience like no other I did before or have done since. Most important thing I did, however, to lead a more meaningful life was that 3 days after my stepdaughter's funeral, I joined a men's faith-sharing group, and for 20 years, it was a wonderful source of loving friendship and spiritual growth. I was the leader of that group for 8 of those 20 years. So fast forward, and we're now in 2015, and I was on a roll. I had been blessed with a gift of grandchildren. I was living the good life, and God was in his heaven. I thought I had things figured out, that I was in control of my fate. Then it all came crashing down. May of 2016, my youngest grandson, Alex, age 12, was diagnosed with a sarcoma in his leg. Alex had the best of care, fought bravely for 2.5 years, enduring grisly bouts of chemo, painful surgeries on his leg and lungs. He was in and out of the hospital endlessly, it seemed like. There were good and hopeful times. He was in remission for several months in 2017. Really neat things did happen to him. I'm pretty sure this is not a big event that many of you noted this past week, but on Thursday night, the Golden State Warriors won the National Basketball Association Championship. They were led by a young man who was the MVP and has been the league MVP several times. His name is Steph Curry. If you don't know about him, you might want to read up about him. He is really an outstanding person, in addition to being one of the best basketball players that's ever lived. But I'm only talking about Steph Curry because at one point Alex did get to meet Steph Curry. Actually took the trouble to get to meet Alex and spend some time with him. That's the type of person Steph Curry is. But in the end, all the finest medical care, all the best energies of love, all the best hopes of faith could not prevail in those 2.5 years of trying, and Alex died. It may take me a while to get through this next part. The impact on my spirit was devastating. Alex's death was heart-rending, earth-shattering. It is not a loss, it's a loss you cannot understand or make sense of. And that is a big problem for me because I always wanted things to make sense. To those of you who haven't lost a child or grandchild, I cannot adequately convey the depth of the anguish and the heartache. For those of you who have experienced such a loss, no description is necessary. One definition of grief is that it is love with no place to go. And the depth of the grief is a reflection of the intensity of the love. I don't apologize for tears. I used to. I loved Alex in a special way that I did not know was possible. I will always love him that way, and I will always miss him. Alex was a remarkable boy, very sensitive to others, and filled with compassion way beyond his years. There are many layers to the loss of a child or grandchild, but one that applies to my story is loneliness. The path of grief is one that you must walk alone. Sure, your spouse, your loved ones, well-meaning friends, not all friends, well-meaning friends, and especially other grieving parents can help you along the way. But in the end, you must make a decision, a conscious decision on how you will live the rest of your life without your lost child. It is a path that you did not choose, but it is the path that God has placed you on. That's where I find myself. For a long time after Alex was diagnosed, I entered a spiritual wilderness, one that was feeling of being adrift deepened when he died. I severed some relationships that I regret losing. Because of an intemperate outburst, I was barred from the homeless services agency where I was volunteering. I left my men's faith sharing group, which had been such a support to me for 20 plus years, because a lot of the guys in there were new. They did not know me, and I did not know them. Some of them wanted to give me advice and tell me how to feel. Gradually, however, I did come in from the wilderness and began to engage again in life. I realize that I'm still a husband, a father, a grandfather. I still have one grandson, as a junior at Purdue this coming year. I have a friend to many, hopefully. I'm a citizen of the world. I have responsibilities. What I do matters. I make a difference. Ultimately, I decided that I will not allow death and sorrow to have the last word about Alex's life. After Alex died, I went back to that statement of beliefs that I shared with you earlier. I still give my heart to love, to kindness, to sharing, and to the communion of souls. In fact, I am more firmly convinced about the existence of souls than I was before Alex got sick and died, because we had signs from him after his death, which we felt were messages to us that he is okay, that he's not in pain anymore. He's running around like 14-year-old boys should. One of those beliefs that I no longer embrace, however, is the existence of a divine source of good that connects us to one another. I'm much more comfortable with the notion that if there's any good that's going to be done in this world, it's going to be done by us. I don't think there's an external reservoir of spirit to draw. I mean, there may be an external reservoir of spirit to draw from, but I'm just not sure about that. I'm still holding that in abeyance. Events like the recent mass shootings make me doubt that even more, make it harder to believe such things. I still have some work to do on my desire to have things make sense. I'm not sure why I have this problem. As I've gotten older and long, I'm very comfortable saying, when people ask me questions, I'm very comfortable with the 3 words, I don't know. In fact, I probably answer that's the answer probably used more often than any other answer to just about any question I asked. In fact, by definition, just about any definition you choose, faith cannot exist without uncertainty. Nevertheless, I cannot completely shake the need for explanations. Unlike my stepdaughter's death, the path forward to a meaningful life after Alex died, a life that will honor what he stood for, has not fallen easily into place. This was 3.5 years ago that it happened. I worry about this because I'm 75 years old. I don't have a lot of time. However, I will say that I am optimistic about this church. We did join last August, and in spite of COVID, we're making connections here. I wanted to start a men's covenant group here last fall and volunteered to lead such a gathering. And unfortunately, there wasn't enough interest shown, so I just put that on the back burner. It didn't stay on the back burner for long, though, because I met and encountered a human dynamo by the name of Carol Manny. I met with Carol, and I told her I wanted to lead a men's group, but there was insufficient interest. Well, to Carol, of course, she replied, well, the hell with that. And then she got busy, made some calls, sent some emails. For all I know, she probably accosted a few guys in the hallways. And voila, we got a great group of 8 men that has been meeting twice a month here at the church since February, which is incredible. I thought it might take us a couple of years to get to 8 men, but we're already there. Like a few more members, we're open to that, so talk to me if you're interested. Maybe this group that I'm part of can help me with my need for things to make sense. Maybe it will help me find the way forward that I'm looking for, or maybe the way forward will happen and stumble onto me. Referring back to Mark Twain's quote at the beginning of this, the day will come when I find out why I was born. That's my journey. That's where I am. Thank you for listening to me today. Amen. So, wow. Goodness. I don't know what to say to that. Thank you. Wow. Now let us stand in body and spirit and sing hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. I extinguish the chalice. But I do not extinguish our light, the light that we bring to the world. And so we leave this gathered assembly, but we don't leave our connection. We don't leave our concerns and our cares for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving, be kind. Amen.